Welcome to Mediocre Gaming, and today we're playing God of War. Well, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, and salutations. Today, this isn't your God of War 4. Let's get to it. Alright, so as an aside here, this is the Trials of Muspelheim in the background here. The first round, not the second round. The first round, of course, ends with fighting the Valkyrie. The second round is a little bit harder. I kind of divided into half, say the first half and the second half, but whatever. Alright. Now, in order to understand why this is not God of War 4, or shouldn't be called God of War 4, we need to go back to the beginning where this all began and go from there. So let's start there. So God of War is a series that started in 2005 with the first God of War on the PS2. And of course, at the end of God of War, Kratos ends up confronting and killing Ares and becomes the new God of War. God of War 2 was released in 2007, also for the PS2. He pissed some people off, big surprise there. Zeus betrays Kratos, and then the Titans help him out, and then Kratos helps out the Titans, and that's kind of where we end with God of War 2. God of War 3, the first God of War on the PS3 in 2010. The Titans betrayed Kratos, big surprise. And they went on to exact their revenge on Olympus. Additionally, Kratos wanted to go after Zeus himself, and he did. Now this entire arc from God of War to God of War 3, Athena kind of helped Kratos along, more with knowledge than with any physical help, but she did intervene more directly in God of War 3. Alright, so that part we all can agree on. God of War to God of War 3. Those are a given, and they're all numbered appropriately. Okay, so now beyond that,
be ready, boy.
We have God of War Betrayal. God of War Betrayal was released for mobile phones back in 2007. Very odd because God of War was always on a PlayStation platform exclusively. So God of War Betrayal, unusual. Not part of the main story arc, but kind of fleshing out some of the in-between. So it was like 1.5. And then you have God of War Chains of Olympus. And that was in 2008 for the PSP, or PlayStation Portable. Now, this was a separate story arc away from God of War to God of War 3. And it was on the Portable. And as I remember, this was a very well done game for the portable system. At the time, it was comparable to the PS2 versions of God of War. So if you've never seen it, it's not going to look that great now. But in comparison to the PS2 versions of God of War and God of War 2, it looks very, very good and played very well. Alright, so we have God of War to God of War 3, God of War Betrayal, God of War Chains of Olympus, and then we have God of War Ghost of Sparta. That was also in 2010. And that was also for the PSP, or PlayStation Portable. And again, this is another part of a separate story arc from God of War to God of War 3. Kind of, again, showing another side of what else Kratos is doing in his spare time besides smashing vases, ticking people off. Alright, and then we have the remake of the God of War collection. It's the God of War Origins collection, so it was just that was released in 2011. Now there was the God of War collection, which was released in 2009, which was the God of War and God of War 2, which were ported over to the PS3. And then there was the God of War Origins collection, which was released in 2011 for the PS3. And that was a remaster of the PSP installments, Chains of Olympus and Ghosts of Sparta.
Once more.
Next we have the God of War Saga, which was released in 2012. And that's a collection of 5 God of War games, and it was for the PS3 as well. It was God of War to God of War 3, Chains of Olympus, Ghosts of Sparta. So there you go. So then that was basically all of the God of War up to that point for the PS3. 2013 is when God of War Ascension was released. Now that is the only game that has multiplayer for God of War, both competitive and co-op. I did get a chance to play the beta. I was not impressed with the multiplayer, and it just kind of seemed like they were putting it out there because they needed to put some God of War, something new for God of War, not a collection. So I was not impressed with it. Did not purchase it. As much as all the players and probably Santa Monica Studio would like to forget about God of War Ascension, it still happened. Alright, so then we have the God of War collection on the Vita in 2014. 2015, God of War 3 was remastered, and that was for the PS4. So the only God of War on the PS4 is God of War 3, which was remastered, and then the newest God of War, which was released 2018. So if you add it all up, you have God of War to God of War 3, God of War Betrayal, God of War Chains of Olympus, God of War Ghosts of Sparta, God of War Ascension. Alright, so that is 7 original God of War titles. Which would make God of War, which was released 2018, to be God of War 8. So if you take all the games in the series, this would be God of War 8. Now, if you're only counting the games that were released originally on consoles, PS2, PS3, PS4, then this would be God of War 5. God of War and God of War 2 on the PS2, God of War 3, and God of War Ascension on the PS3, and then God of War on the PS4. So you have to say that this is either God of War, either you have to say this is God of War 5, or you have to say God of War 8, or you could say that this is God of War whatever edition. God of War Retirement Edition, God of War Odin Edition, God of War Thor Edition, God of War Boulder Edition, God of War Jotunheim Edition, something. I certainly agree that there should be some sort of addition to the title, because there's already a God of War. It was released 13 years ago, but it was still released, And that's what started the whole series. So I know that some people, like myself, are upset that there's 2 God of Wars now. There was the original in 2005 and now the one in 2018. You have a whole bunch of God of Wars in between, which people may have liked or may not have liked. Like I said, God of War Ascension technically would have been God of War 4 if you include only the console versions of God of War. So you have God of War 1 through 3, God of War Ascension, which would be God of War 4, and then the current one, which would be God of War 5. So having some sort of logic involved would say that this is God of War 5, or if you only include the console versions.
Most impressive, brothers.
If you include all the versions that were released
One more time.
with the God of War franchise, this would be God of War 8. So you can call this God of War 5, you can call this God of War 8, but you can't call it God of War 4 because it's already happened. That would be as bad as saying, come out with another game in 2 years and call it God of War again. What are you going to do? Are you going to call it God of War 2020? Is this one God of War 2018? Instead of having some sort of suffix to it, or extra, you're going to call it by the year that it was released? God of War 2013. And even that doesn't work because God of War 3 and God of War Ghost of Sparta were both released in 2010. So you would have 2 God of War 2010s if you were to rename everything based on the time frame when it was released, the year it was released. If you just name it by and number it by when it was released, you have God of War 2, God of War 3 is actually God of War Betrayal, God of War 4 would be Chains of Olympus, God of War 5 would be God of War 3, God of War 6 would be Ghost of Sparta, God of War 7 would be God of War Ascension, and God of War 8 would be the current God of War. So, following some sort of logical path to name these things does certainly help. And we have to come up with some sort of nomenclature for the different things, and calling it God of War 4 is just wrong. Go ahead and leave a comment below what you think the suffix for this God of War game should be. Should it be God of War Axe Edition, God of War Odin Edition, God of War Midgard Edition? Go ahead and leave that comment below. Let me know, because I am curious what everyone thinks, what the subtitle or the ending of this God of War title should be called when it came out. It should have been called something other than just God of War, and it's certainly not God of War 4. Well, thank you for liking, commenting, and subscribing, and we'll see you next time.
Another gate opened up.